Hi folks, this is another one of my retro hatch restorations I did, which I'm bringing over to my Retrorestore channel. This was an old puff train I picked up from a car boot sale. I had to pay £25 for this, although it was in a really bad state. It was, well, as you can see, there was no paint left on it, and it's obviously been crushed at some point, because as you can see there from the main tube there, it's been really dented there. But it had something. And as you well know, that I used to like restoring stuff that was sort of beyond repair, so to speak. This has gone further than patina, you could say. So it was good enough for me to have a challenge to bring to my channel. It's a trying toy. As I say, it's called a puff train, and it does have it did have a set of bellows inside under the cab, where you can make it go puff basically when it goes along, when you push it along. And I'm just started the disassembly now, and as you can see, I'm just drilling out the original rivets there, and that's where the bellows live underneath. As you can see, £25 is what the person wanted for it. I did pay that. And at the front here it had a cover which was broken, so I knew that I'd have to make some sort of replacement cover for that. And underneath there was another set of bellows, which apparently when you pull a metal rod out of the centre of that cover, it made a little noise. And as you can see, the bellows there are well past their sell by date, and also that front cover there, look. So I would have to create something to go in there to replace that and to repair that. And as you can see, it's well twisted there. I've got a lot of work to do there for straightening this out. That's the internal front bellow mechanism there, with a little whistle block on the back. I need to actually refurbish that as well, although it's all usable and can be repaired. But as you can see, the main chassis itself is in a bit of a state, so it's now time to sort of strip it down to its bare components. And I'll remove the bell here. Well, it's not a bell, it's a dome. I don't quite know what that dome's for, but I'm sure you steam engine enthusiasts will know what that dome represents. And the main body seems to be held on by bolts and nuts on the main chassis rail there, as you can see. So removing the old inner bellows mechanism there. There's not really a lot I thought I could do with that, to be honest with you. That was as far as it comes apart. The rubber bellows had disappeared many years ago, but there is an arm that attaches to that and makes the bellows go in and out when you actually turn the wheels. And talking of turning the wheels, I've got to drill out these small bent over bits of aluminium on the wheels that hold the rods on that move the wheels backwards and forwards. So I'm just drilling out the centres there, and I'll probably just lever them up with a screwdriver there, as you can see. Now, as I say, I've got to reuse these wheels and them centres there, so I have to come up with an idea of fixing them back on afterwards, because those bits of metal I'm actually grinding away there are part of the actual wheel castings, which are burred over afterwards. So once you've actually grinded it away like I have there, obviously you've got less metal, so I'll have to put some sort of mock rivets in there. Now, they were chrome plated originally, so I'll have to deal with that later on. And as with a lot of triangle toys, and also Tonka toys as well, a lot of the ancillary parts are just used bent over, where they don't use a mechanical connection apart from like little tangs. So it's just a matter of straightening them out and then taking off the ancillary parts. Here we go. Again, that'll be fine once it's sandblasted. Just removing the rubber bungs at the front, or the buffers as you could say. I don't want to damage these because I probably don't think you'd be able to get them again, so just being a little bit careful when removing them. So a little bit tricky now. There used to be a bell hanging from here I did actually try to search one out. I have found similar bells, but again I haven't fitted it on at the end of this because at the time of filming this video I didn't have one. So but yeah, there was a little bell hanging from there, and again not too sure how they'd welded this on. It had been welded in, so I've got to find them welds and obviously drill them out so that I can disassemble it. So these are spot welded, and I'm just drilling straight through them now just to release the main tank off of the base of the unit, and that proved to be more difficult than I thought. There was more hidden welds that I had to drill through as well, so very hard to do that from the top, as you can see, because of the main body of the tube in the way. And although it may look a mess, all this can be repaired, don't forget, with more welding afterwards. They were probably spot welded with a special tool before the actual body of the thing went on. And that's where you get these little tools come in very handy, these little die grinders for getting into tight areas. As you can see, they're not designed to come apart really once they've been assembled in the factory. But the beauty of it is that we can actually replace metal afterwards and get that looking as though it's not been touched at all. So I just decided to grind through the whole thing then, and then just remove it by just tapping gently and cutting through that bracket there, so to speak, and that releases the front without too much damage as compared to the other side. And again I decided just to break through that bracket there because it was welded again, and you can see the extent of the damage to that tube now, how dented that is, and I've got to sort of get that back to a shape. The wheels couldn't come off, and I didn't want to damage them, so I decided to take another route, and that would be to cut through the actual axles as well, so that I can preserve the wheels and not damage them at all. And I can always weld that back up again later on. What's probably happened there is the metal has expanded in the aluminium and it's caused it to weld itself in, and if I would have persevered with turning that I could have cracked the wheel casing. So I thought sawing would be the best way to preserve the wheels without damaging them. There we go. And I had to cut both wheels off of this because they had that crank in the middle, which is the crank that provides the motion for the bellows in the back cab, which is at the moment redundant. And as you can see, that's the most I can strip it down. And yeah, no paint left on this at all. A lot of people would possibly call that patina, but due to the amount of dents and smashes that it's had over its lifetime, it wasn't really salvageable, so that's why I decided to do a restoration on this. There you go. Also the decals, as you can see there, I would have to get them replaced and recreate them somehow. So that's it. It's time to start getting this thing ready. Now I'm lucky and fortunate enough to have a media blaster. I'm using aluminium oxide in here, which I find the best. I've used glass in the past, and that's okay. It does break down into a powder too soon, but this aluminium oxide seems to do a good job. And this is my attempt at getting subscriptions. I'm trying to write the word subscribe along the rusted body there. It don't quite look like subscribe, but you get the idea now that I've told you what it's supposed to say. So yeah, the media blast, you really can't do this sort of restoration without a media blaster. As I say, I'm fortunate enough to have one, and I've used it many times. And it brings metal up to a really nice condition, gets rid of all the rust without any chemical intervention, and yeah, it lets you see what you're dealing with basically. It just blows away years and years of corrosion, as you can see. And don't forget, this part is probably 70 to 80 years old. So it's definitely had a life, so to speak. And toys of that generation are pretty rare to come by now. So little boys, when they was 6, 7, 8 years old, when they would have received this, first of all them years ago, would have had a brand new looking puff train, and that's the reason why I chose to bring it back to this sort of level again. So as you can see, the media blaster looks like it's done a good job. So now it's time to tackle these dents and bashes. Now again, I'm no body work expert, but I'm just using some things I got around the workshop just to try and recreate the original shape again. Pushing the dent out in this tin plate. So time to get the hammers out. Ideally, yeah, as I say, I'd need a leather filled pad with sand. So I'm just having to make do with what I've got at the end of the day. So I'm just sort of trying to pad it out with a bit of cloth, just so I can recreate that curve again and get it somewhere near looking like it should do. So it's getting there, but it's still not quite right. I need a smaller radius inside because you can't push around that can. So lucky enough, I decided to use the head of a rubber mallet that I had, and that seemed to do the job better for reproducing the shape. And I've got these soft blow hammers as well, just so you don't sort of put any dimples or dents into the piece. So as you can see, it's getting there now. And also this top part of the cab was twisted by the looks of it, so again needing to recreate the correct curve there, and also retaining that ridge that's just inside that edge line there, so that we don't flatten it out, is something you've got to be aware of. Just gentle manipulation basically. It's only thin plate, so provided you're hitting it in the right places and you're supporting it in the right places, you should be able to get somewhere near the original shape. And having a vise is also a handy thing, where you can recreate them straight edges again where the fold or crease lines were. The actual main chassis bodywork looks like it's been stood on at some point, as it's well twisted. So all I could really do here was sort of try and flatten it out, and also reverse the twisting action, so to speak. So just clamping it in the vise and easing it back with some drifts seemed to be the way to go. Again, just reversing what was already there. It's getting there now. It obviously been strained at some point, so it's just a matter of applying pressure in the right places, just looking at it and tapping back places that have been raised or dropped back in some way, and just bringing it back to its normal position. Again, using the dollies, because sometimes you need some weight behind when you're tapping on sheet metal, just to provide a surface for it to flatten off onto. And as I said to you before, now's the time to start putting this back together and using my welding techniques. I'm not a welder by any ways, but just bringing this back together and reassembling it, and also using tools like this file, which is great for getting into small areas, this power file. So I've got it all back together now to a certain extent. I'm just going to wipe it down now, because I'm actually going to powder coat this. So wiping it down with some acetone now, just to get all the oil and grease and other contaminants off. And now I've got to find a way of trying recreating this front plastic cover there. There's no way you can buy one of these, so I've had to come up with something similar. And I found this little Tupperware container, which seemed to be the right size, although it doesn't retain any of the stuff at the front. But I thought I could just use this as a replacement for something similar. Don't tell Sharon I'm cutting her Tupperware containers up there, will you? So this is my powder coating kit. This is my easy coat. powder coating system from Electrostatic Magic. I've used this thing many times, and if you're into restoration stuff, it's a must have something like this. And I'm using their basic red colour, and the great thing about this is it sets up really easy, and doing all the hard to get at places first, as you can see. Again, I was a bit unsure about doing this because I didn't know if the powder would get into all the little nooks and crannies, but getting good coverage is a great thing with this, because it electrostatically just adheres to the metal if you've got it grounded down correctly. As you can see, I'm doing all the inside there and down them little crevices there. And what you're looking for is complete uniform coverage and not to be able to see any metal through the powder. That's when you know you've got enough on. So this is my oven I created. I built this out of an old filing cabinet and an old electric oven. And again, I've used this many times. So just hanging it up in there, preheated up to 180 degrees centigrade, and that'll go in for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And then the powder flows out. And while that's cooking, I can get on with powder coating all these other little bits as well. And as you can see there, folks, that's red hot at the moment. Just going to lift it out and show you. How about that? Superb. That's as it probably looked when it was new. We'll just get these other bits hung up there. And now I've changed the colour now to the black for the cab top. Just give that a light dusting with the old black powder coat. And as you can see by the base there, there's hardly no wastage there, look. Some people I've seen powder coating whack the pressure up really high and they waste so much powder. But you really don't need it. There we go, fantastic. Again, that will go in at 180 degrees centigrade for about 10 minutes. Finished with the gun now, just take it apart. Just blow compressed air through it really to clean it. There's nothing you have to do with regards to cleaning apart from just blowing it through with compressed air. It's a great system. Right, that's the roof done. There's all the component parts now. I've got to rebuild now the front section. And I've got a little plastic lid as well. And I made that out of a bit of an old vinyl that Sharon had, or canvas I think it was actually, and I'm just going to glue on that little plastic lid onto the inside there with some impact adhesive, just to recreate the centre part which needs to be fitted on the inside of that lid. Wait about 10 minutes and then stick them together and that won't pull apart. Just drilling the hole through the centre now for the rod. And these parts want to be chrome, so I did have a chrome powder coat which I'm just dusting on now. It goes on grey actually, so yeah, don't be fooled by the colour of it when it goes in the oven, because when it comes out, as you'll see in a second, there'll be high chrome 15 minutes later. Look at that old spring there, look. Although you will need to protect them with a spray, a gloss lacquer or whatever. They do a powder coating clear lacquer, but I've used that and it doesn't seem to, it dulls it down a little bit. So in this case, just because it was a display piece, I didn't bother lacquering it anyway. So just reassembling now, using cable ties to hold that canvas on there, putting that back together and tying it on again with cable ties. And as you can see, we've got a unit back together. And it works. Right, so just putting the axles back through now, and again, just needing to weld them to join them back together. You've got to make sure they're straight, folks, before you start welding. Otherwise, they'll spin out of line. And once I've done that, just using that power file there, spinning the wheels just to recreate the main shape of the axle again, and that works out a treat. So I have replaced the main body to the puff train. At the time of me doing this, I didn't have a bellow or a set of bellows for this, so I'll just tie it up for the moment, and someone at a later date, if I do find one, I will fit it. But apparently you can use a steering gator off of a car, and that produces a similar bellow. So I haven't done it yet, but I'm not really too bothered about it. It's not as if it's going to be used at all, but so I'm just replacing the cover now with the rivets, and putting these front buffers back on again. Again, all freshly powder coated. And I decided to drill these holes out on the wheels. Just put some rivets in there with some super glue, just to give the effect of a proper riveted arm. And again, replacing those front rubber buffer sections, which you probably can't buy anymore, so that's why to retain the originals. So that's what we started off with, folks. Again, way past its best, and after our little restoration work we've done on it, we've got it back looking to as it probably did when it was new. It was in a state, a lot of people say patina. No, it's not patina. And as you can see there, everything's gone back on a treat. I recreated the puff labels from some water slide transfers, and as you can see, the mechanism works fine for the wheel, and that would go somewhere now to be a display item as opposed to being used. And that's probably as it looked 70 years ago. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, folks. I'll be bringing to you a few more of my old restoration stuff, which I've done on my Retro Hacks channel, just giving it a bit of something different with a voiceover, and just to let you know how and what I produced and how I did things at the time of making this video. Thanks very much. See you in the next video, and until then, bye for now.